make of the absence of Xi Jinping? How do you read it? And let me ask you, do you believe Xi Jinping is making a mistake here, or what is the message he's sending?
Well, the temptation has always been, the initial reactions were that this has been done by Xi Jinping to snub India. He does not want to come into a forum where India takes center stage and a place where Prime Minister Modi will be holding forth. His meeting with Prime Minister Modi at Johannesburg, well, hardly a meeting, it was a conversation, did not go well. There were controversies immediately thereafter. And in the military level talks, there was no progress at all. So all this would make one feel that Xi is not coming because of the India factor. But some other reports seem to indicate that there is a possibility that there are internal problems in China because of which Xi Jinping is not coming. And this report emanates from Japan. It's a Nikkei report saying that at a secret conclave of the Communist Party leaders, Xi was pulled up for various things within China. We all know that China's economy is not doing too well. Now, if you look at Xi's boycott of not going to the East Asia and the ASEAN summit, that is right in the backyard of China. He's avoided that. And even at the BRICS summit, his behavior was, his participation was there, but he left. He did not participate in the business forum, and he left pretty early. So all this seems to indicate that things are not going well within China for Xi Jinping. But his not coming here is a loss because so many leaders were looking forward to meeting him. Apart from President Biden, I believe even the Japanese Prime Minister was keen to talk to him because of the confrontation they had, not only because of the map, but also because of that Fukushima water issue.
See, Barkha, I tend to agree with Ambassador Sinha first, but I'm tempted to go along with what you subsequently said in your statement just now. There's somewhere a combination of the two which is at play. There is no doubt, at the cost of repetition, the fact that Xi Jinping did not attend the last day of the summit, the BRICS summit, and actually his speech had to be read out by the Commerce Minister, was an indication itself. Besides that, many other things have been at play, and this latest report which has come from the Japanese media about him being pulled up by the previous various leaders of the CPC appears to be something which is cementing that perception. I think it all started from quite far back, almost 3 months back, when you had the removal of the foreign minister and the return of Mr. Wang as the foreign minister. That was perhaps the start point of this whole thing. But again, one is tempted to also feel that China is not a nation who knows diplomacy too well. China has not played the India card well at all. And in many other cases, you find the entire policy with the ASEAN, with Japan, with South Korea, things haven't been too rosy. So the Chinese aren't adept at playing this kind of a diplomacy. They think they're on the path of growth. Comprehensive national power is increasing. That gives them a right to actually bully the rest of the world. Actually, this is the time when what Deng Xiaoping had mentioned in 1978, right? Keep a big stick and continue to talk peace. That is the policy which China should continue to be following at the moment until the 2035, the timeline which Xi Jinping himself has set for himself for China to attain ultimate power as such. But somewhere in the middle, things seem to have gone wrong. We are tempted to also think that it could be the India factor which is playing a role in this. I wrote on this, I analyzed on it, but within 48 hours, I started changing my mind because I did think that Xi Jinping has met Prime Minister Modi, maybe not met him very passionately at different meetings, but he's met him. And his presence here may have actually been good for China. Lots of things could have been discussed with different nations with whom the Chinese have got differences, but most of all with India, where an attempt is being made to try and transparently show that things are improving, while actually they are not on the ground.
Yeah, that last bit is very important because Suhasini, when the two leaders, Prime Minister Modi and Xi Jinping, did meet on the sidelines of the BRICS summit, there was controversy attached to that meeting. The Chinese made it a point to say that that meeting was at the request of the Indians. India, of course, rebutted that sharply and then reinforced the situation at the line of actual control. Do you think the answer to why Xi Jinping is not attending the G20 lies in that meeting that was behind closed door? There were no photo ops. There wasn't much revealed about that meeting. Could the answer lie there?
Well, I certainly think, and I would swap around the emphasis that General Hasnain has put and say that I think the reason for Xi Jinping not coming is definitely a message for India. And I think that for him to have come to India without any kind of breakthrough on the line of actual control and the continuing standoff would not have been something China would have seen as possible. And turn it around, would it be possible for Prime Minister Modi in these circumstances to travel to China while the armies are still faced off against each other at the line of actual control? So I think it is a message. I think the way that the Chinese delegations have been behaving at the G20, particularly since we saw India turn around that SCO summit into a virtual summit, is also another indicator, because if President Xi Jinping had planned to come to India, then perhaps we would not have seen Chinese delegations blocking the joint statement on quite as many factors. Because it's not just, of course, the Ukraine paragraphs that are holding up the leaders' declaration at the G20 right now. It is, amongst other objections, China's objections on debt financing, the differences on climate, the differences on things like Sanskrit phrases like Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. We've seen and we've been hearing from Sherpas around the world about the kind of differences between the Indian and the Chinese side on a lot of these. If he was coming, I think the Chinese delegation may have been a little easier on these fronts. And I definitely think there is a message there. What his internal problems may be, perhaps we will find out in the due course of time. But it's certainly the internal happenings didn't stop him from being at the BRICS summit, from going to South Africa for a bilateral state visit as well, where he received this big medal. So it didn't stop him from doing all of those things. It hasn't stopped BRICS from having a joint statement. It hasn't stopped China from being a part of a joint statement at the East Asia Summit today in Indonesia. So I think a lot will depend when we see how the G20 works out this weekend. But I do think that there is a messaging from Beijing to Delhi about the fact, and India has said it too, that without some kind of a resolution at the LAC, relations can't be normal. I think that includes a visit by the head of state.
Barkha, I think there are two big picture issues here, which it would be interesting to think about. One is that India has finally started irritating China. This whole logic of India does not matter to China. India is secondary power. India does not, it's China and the Americans are at play. I think now finally it is brass tacks time. And I think we are now irritating Chinese like we have never done before. And we see it everywhere. We see it bilaterally, we see it trilaterally, we see it regionally, as you were pointing out, we see it globally. And I think the other point is that India-China dynamic has gone global. It is now in SCO. It is now in, I think Indian Foreign Minister pointedly saying that, look, the only reason we are not in UNSC is because of China. You look at, of course, G20 is the primary forum as of now, what we are discussing. And I think what Suhasini was saying, to expect Chinese leader to be here when the Chinese have been so obstructionist throughout this entire process, seems to me quite extraordinary to me. I mean, I would not would expected China to come here, Chinese leader to come here, given what they were behaving throughout this process. So I think there is we should be patting ourselves back. We are doing something right. That we are irritating the Chinese. They are making a point of showing it off that India is getting under their skin. Now the question is, what happens now? Is there a way out? Because we have to, as two neighbors, deal with each other, and I don't think there is a way out as of now. So clearly, I think there is a point here that it's a mix of Chinese internal problems, and India's ability to showcase its leadership at a time when clearly there is a leadership void at the global level. And India is, a lot of things that India is saying, for example, as part of its G20 process, that has become very, very visible.